Will Kayatin here at the Kentucky Valley Educational Cooperative on Friday, February 14th, Valentine's Day. So, a very special day for all of us in the world. And we're in the Holler Professional Broadcasting Studio. And I have a very distinguished guest, a movie star, Meade McKenzie.
Yes.
CEO of KRCC and General Counsel, and it is a privilege, ma'am. We've had conversations. I've had the good fortune of working with some of your professional staff over the last number of months, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the work that the two of us have done together.
Sure.
But Mary is amazing. She is a sterling asset to our region. And we are kindred spirits in that we are both in the business, very passionate about encouraging, motivating, trying to inspire people in our communities that we serve to be great today and great every day. So I'm going to step aside for a moment and ask Mary to talk a little bit about herself, the power of her story and journey. It's very compelling. So Mary, the stage is yours, ma'am.
Well, thank you so much, Bill. And I will say it's always good to start out a conversation when you agree with something that somebody says about you, the movie star, the amazing. I agree with all of you on that. My story, obviously, everybody's story is unique. They think that anyway, but mine is particularly interesting. I find it interesting that I'm sitting in a holler studio because I grew up in a holler in Letcher County, Kentucky. And I was that child that was the brainiac. There was nothing to do. When I grew up in Whitesburg, we had 3 TV channels then. That was CBS, ABC, and NBC. And when your parents only wanted to watch the news, and you did not particularly want to watch that, there wasn't a lot to do. So I read a lot, read books, sometimes 7, 8, 9, 10 a day. And so I was that brainiac growing up, that kind of child, and continued that through my high school career. Didn't do a lot of what I guess the kids call partying back then. So I was that academic. Had a full ride scholarship to Yale. And some of that was based on obviously the grades, and I had a very high ACT score. But also the Eastern Kentucky played into that, I think, too. They like to help impoverished at that time, and they still may. But in any event, was working at Superior Food Market in Letcher County, and decided my junior year of high school that I had not partied enough. I hadn't lived.
Junior year of high school.
Junior year of high school. So all I'd done is study and read. I was going to live a little bit, right? So I went to a junior prom, and that's what started it off. I thought, oh, this is amazing. This partying lifestyle. Oh, yes.
You're terrifying me. My daughter's in the 9th grade and about to go to prom.
Well, once she hears the other side of the story,
Okay,
that
good.
may help a little bit. But so I blew off Yale, didn't apply to any other colleges. But now my life plan had been to be an attorney. I had known this since I was 7 years old, had never wavered from that. At 7, carried around legal pads. I mean, that annoying kid, right? And so knew I wanted to go to law school, but for whatever, lost my mind my senior year of high school, partied my whole way through it. My mom, please, she don't watch podcasts or anything like this, so I'm not worried about her, but partied my whole way through my senior year. Didn't respond to Yale, no other colleges. So I'm at Superior Food Market. Shout out to Joe, who gave me my first job. And standing there on August 17th at 4:30, the end of my shift. Look up at the clock after I've checked out somebody and literally had an epiphany. You know those things where light bulbs go off and you hear all these things? I had an epiphany, and that literally does happen because I had an immediate epiphany at 4:30. And I'll not use language on this podcast that I shouldn't, but said to myself, essentially, what have you done to your future? You have ripped it to shreds. What are you going to do? How are you going to go to law school? So all these emotions and thoughts are hitting me at once. So thankfully, the only college that would let me drive to their campus the very next day and register for and start classes was Alice Lloyd College. So Alice Lloyd had never been on my radar as a college I wanted to attend. I was coming from a holler, but wanted to be a big city girl. That was the plan, world plan, right? And so started at Alice Lloyd. That lasted for about a year. I did meet my Jamaican husband there. That's a whole other podcast, whole other story. But would have never met him for Alice Lloyd.
Alice Lloyd.
So went there for a year, transferred to HCTC, and had my daughter at 19.
Wow.
So young mother,
Yes.
also not in the plan, right? So Jamaican not in the plan, daughter not in the plan, but happened anyway. And get my associates in science, associates in arts in Hazard, and then realized that I need to finish up my bachelor's ASAP to get to law school. So I started classes at UK and took 13 credit hours in the summer, 22 in the fall, and 20 in the
Wow.
spring. They let me finish 2 years in 1 year and graduated and started UK law school.
Goodness.
Yes.
That's amazing.
So that's a short part of that story. There's a lot more to it than that.
Great story.
I've had some interesting times for
I
sure.
can imagine.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And now you finished law school.
Okay. So yes, finish
Talk
law school.
a little bit about your professional career pathway, because I mean, you don't go from law school to being the CEO of a major nonprofit corporation.
Well, here's what's funny. They don't tell you in law school that law school and the bar, if they get a hold of this, I may be put on trial. I don't know. But law school does not teach you how to be an attorney. That's a little known secret. It doesn't teach you how to be an attorney. The only way you know how to be an attorney is to become an attorney in practice. And so I did very well in law school, but kind of fell into my profession as a trust and estate planning probate attorney. Became very good at that. Practiced at two of the larger firms in Lexington, Frost Brown Todd and Stahl Keenan Ogden. And then, lo and behold, at one point in my journey, I had law clerked for Shirley Cunningham, an attorney in Lexington. He called me up one day when I'm at Stahl Keenan, and he says, I need your help. I'm involved in a case. It's the FinFin litigation. I'm only going to need you for about 2 weeks. I need your help on this motion, and then you'll be in and out. And I thought, I've not done really a lot of work like this. He's my good friend. He needs my help. I ran my conflict check. Everything was fine. That in and out for 2 weeks turned into 6 years.
Oh, my.
Yes. So I became embroiled in the FinFin litigation, and so I started my own firm in Lexington, and I practiced in Lexington and Georgetown, but primarily to handle that case, but I also did med-mal and car accident cases and those kind of things. I didn't have a nickname. I wish I did now. The Hammer was pretty good, and I thought, if I had it to do over, it would have been like the Jackal or something like that. I've thought about that. But in any event, in that case, I was every kind of counsel you can be. Civil counsel, appellate counsel, state counsel, bar counsel, federal criminal consultant counsel. It was very, very interesting. And I did it with a law office of Meade, McKenzie, because I'm that control freak that I didn't even hire a paralegal. I'm such a type A, that little girl that carried the legal pad. I'm still her. I can't figure out really sometimes how to use help really well, because I want to just do it all myself kind of thing.
I have that same challenge.
It's interesting. It makes life very, very interesting, especially for your spouse when you say, you never helped me, and they try to help you and say, you did it wrong, don't ever help me again, until the next time comes. You're like, you never helped me. So, but in any event, argued my first case in front of the Appellate Court of Kentucky, having never done it in that case. And at the appellate level, they overturned, based on my argument, a $42 million judgment. Now, the Supreme Court ultimately reinstated that. So I do have to always add that in, that I was victorious for a short window of time.
But what a victory.
I still claim it because it did exist in time for a moment. But in any event, that case took its toll on me and the practice that went along with that. And so to take a vacation from that, I decided to go be an ALJ with the state in the unemployment branch. And so I held hearings on unemployment claims for a couple of years, I think.
Very interesting.
And after my vacation was over, because for me, a vacation is having just one very intense job, not three, I decided that, okay, I'm at that point in life where I've done a lot of things I never thought I'd do as a little girl from a holler, UZ, as a matter of fact, UZ, Kentucky. And I want to do something that actually means something, not just to me, but to other people. And so I started looking, and I thought, I thought off and on, would I ever go back to Eastern Kentucky? And the more I thought about the helping part of that, I thought, if I'm going to help anybody, I don't want to help strangers. I want to help my people. And that's how I saw it. And lo and behold, just like the universe gives when you ask, I opened the Herald Leader one day and saw the position Now, at the time, I didn't know it was for KRCC.
In the
was
Herald Leader.
It was in the Herald Leader. Blind ad. It didn't say KRCC. It didn't even say mental health facility. It didn't say anything like that. It said, I believe it was executive team member for a organization in Eastern Kentucky. But the list of job duties or thoughts that they had about the job were enough to pique my interest. And when I saw Eastern Kentucky executive team member helping people was in there, I thought, okay, so this is divine intervention, right? Applied for the ad, and it's been, like, I guess, intervention or whatever it is that happens when things are supposed to happen. It's been awesome ever since. So got the job, moved my family back here. I've got twin 17-year-old boys.
And they're in Perry Central, aren't they?
They are. And that was a concern of mine, being half Jamaican and living in Lexington and Georgetown their entire lives. I thought, now how is this going to impact them to move back to the mountains? But they had been odd children anyway, because they had always been obsessed with, like, mountain men and shows like that. So I thought, they've got the oddest affinity for mountainy things, not having lived there. And moved here, started Perry Central, and it's like they've lived here their entire lives.
My goodness.
They fit in from day one, so that was a blessing.
Wow.
Yes.
That is such a powerful story. How many years now have you been the CEO?
In April, it will be 6.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
It flew by.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for letting me.
Story, your journey, your career pathway. I knew bits and pieces of it, but to hear it all in one setting is very powerful and moving.
Thank you.
So thank you for sharing. Now, switching gears.
Okay.
Take a couple minutes and talk about all the great things that KRCC does, because it's multifaceted.
Correct.
And folks may have a certain perception about what KRCC does, but they really have no idea how much you do. And let's just take a couple minutes to talk about that, because we want our audience to hear, because our audience is teachers and students in the KVAC service region. So we're going to share this information with them as we continue to partner together on various projects moving forward.
Absolutely.
And we already have, and we'll talk toward the end of our conversation about that, because a lot of our teachers and students will recognize you when they see this video vignette.
Okay.
So, yeah, talk about KRCC, please.
Well, thank you for the opportunity
Yes,
to do
ma'am.
that. And like you say, I could probably talk much, much longer about KRCC in general, so I'm going to confine my conversation mostly to children's services because that's your audience. Recognizing that KRCC does provide mental health services for adults and children. We have a very vast array of services for substance use, and that's from teens all the way through, older years. We have the Hickory Hill facility out in Knott County, and that's a 100-bed facility for men. People mostly recognize us, though, from the traditional outpatient. And I'm saying traditional, we've been doing this over 50 years now, KRCC. People are familiar with being court-ordered or mandated to come to one of our offices for therapy. Intensive outpatient, you've gotten a DUI conviction, it's diversion, those type of things. And those services all still exist and are very important to our region, especially now with the opioid epidemic.
Yes, ma'am.
However, what we've done in recent years, I think, is more appropriate for this conversation in terms of what we've expanded for children's services. So we have for many years had therapists in the schools in the counties that we serve, and I think we overlap the same county region. You may have many more, as I understand. Also, you're over a lot of things.
We
A lot of counties, a lot of
cover
things.
a lot of ground.
You
the
do.
size of the state of Connecticut.
Wow, really?
Yes. Can you? Yeah.
No, that's
So,
fascinating.
sometimes I wonder why I'm so tired. It's because the
yeah.
15 school districts that I work in, and KVAC actually has 23 member school districts. So my service region through the special education division is actually a little bit smaller, but still the size of the state of Connecticut, from Pike
my
County all the
goodness.
way down to Leslie County, all the way across to Breathitt, Owsley, Wolf. Yeah, so I'm running around as a 54-year-old.
I'm impressed.
That's been my biggest challenge. Thank you, ma'am.
No,
But we
I
do
am.
have a lot of counties and school districts in common.
We do.
Absolutely.
And I actually had to go to Owsley County for a ball game the other night. And sometimes, and we talk about this with the state a lot with our contracts and stuff that we have, It is one thing to be in Lexington, my old home, and Frankfort, decision makers, and talk to them about how difficult transportation. I'm kind of going off on a tangent,
That's
but
okay.
it's related.
We can go there.
Transportation issues are for our region. You can give, let's take $5,000. That's still a lot of money, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay. So let's say somebody in Frankfort wants to give a grant or a contract of $5,000 to an organization in Lexington, okay? When you give that $5,000, Lexington organizations don't really have to consider transportation. They do, but they don't, because there's buses that run, there's taxi services, there's Uber, there's all kinds of opportunities there to get people to your different service locations. We don't have any of that. So when you drive from the far end of Letcher County, my sister lives in Mayking, so let's just pretend you're right there on the Jenkins line, Payne Gap, all the way to the end of Owsley County, where I was for that ball game. How long of a trip do you think that is?
That is about a good 2.5 hours.
Yes, absolutely. So that,
Because I've done it.
yeah, that's why I'm saying when you're saying you're tired, I get it, because people don't realize sometimes how you may be talking about two counties or even two that are adjacent, but that could mean an hour drive from end to end.
That's just one way.
That's exactly right. As the crow flies, that's it. As
Yes,
the
ma'am.
crow flies, one way. So anyway,
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
that's one of those things that we're always talking about, even for kids, like the transportation issue to get them to places, to get them services. The same way I kind of jokingly talked about living in a holler, kids do, and some of them live in holler to holler hours time to get to schools, much less to get to services. So back to the services that
Yes, ma'am.
KRCC has been providing. We've had therapists in schools for I don't know how many years. It's been a long, long time. But we realized that was not serving all of the need for those kids that are either in school but also out of school. So a couple of years ago, we started what are called sapling centers. These are outreach centers in several of our counties where transitional youth aged 16 to 24 can stop by. There's free access to Wi-Fi, showers, laundry, cooking appliances. Clothes are there if they need them. Tutors are there if they need them. Therapists are there if they need them. And they're free to those
That's fantastic.
to those youth. And we started the first one in Perry and then expanded to Letcher. Now, we've had several of them in other counties, but recently we've closed a couple, and I just want to mention that briefly. Just because sometimes people don't understand the decisions and the thought that goes into something, decisions like that. Those centers in our original regions were being so used here, but so underutilized at some of the others that sometimes you've got to make those decisions. And I know we always try to make our decisions based on what's best for the client, for the child. And that's not ever good to have to close a facility, but what it did is actually make our other facilities here stronger in terms of resources and who we're able to serve. Now, from those sapling centers, we saw, okay, so this is helping our 16 to 24-year-old. What are we doing for kids that are younger than 16? So we opened Treehouse Academies. So that's for younger children. And in our region, when there's not a lot of options for kids to have extracurricular mental stimulation, I mean, there's lots of programs out there, and schools do the best they can, but they can't meet the need for every child. So we now have Treehouse Academies for younger kids in several of our counties. And most
Didn't know that. That's great.
yeah, I love those.
Me too.
I love the treehouse idea, obviously, because I always think of reading books in a treehouse. Again, back to the books. But and then most recently in Perry County, we've opened the Rebound Center, which I'm not sure they really like me interposing my basketball rebound. I'm sure they were thinking of some other imagery when they thought of that name, but I'm a basketball fan, guys, and it became a basketball symbol, a logo for that. But that's a center in Perry County where families can go, not just children, but the entire family who need help with, for example, recovery issues and those type of things, with the ideal being that, you know, and I'm just going to say it, this may get edited out, I don't know. People who are in recovery, and that doesn't just include the adults, it includes the children's in their lives too. They may not be using, but they're a part of the situation of someone else that is. And that sometimes does not get addressed. And so the idea behind that is when you're drinking and in the midst of substance abuse, life is so fun. Now, no one wants to say that. It's not supposed to be, but it is. That's why you continue to do it. So it is difficult for a lot of people when they're in therapy and recovery. And now you've got that missing ingredient. Because let's just be honest, Bill, regular life, I mean, I love my life and it's enjoyable. But sometimes it's just regular everyday life.
Mhm.
Not every day is fun. Not every moment in every day is fun. And so trying to create a situation and a place, a safe place where people can come, where there are games and like-minded individuals and kids who are similarly situated to have fun. And remember that life in general is very fun. It doesn't have to involve this piece over here. So I'm very happy that that center is up and going. It's slowly growing in numbers once people understand what it is. But the idea is trying to figure out how you can provide something for every single person across the board.
That is a fantastic concept. I applaud you and your leadership.
Well, applaud
and
the
your
people
team.
that do the work, because the
That's
boots on the
amazing.
ground, that's the hard part.
Wow. And I knew about those programs and opportunities for our citizenry, but I had no idea how substantive these opportunities really are. So thanks for fleshing it out a little bit so
Sure.
folks have the full sense of the opportunities for our folks out there moving forward, and I hope that they continue to grow. I can't imagine that they wouldn't. Made perfect sense to me. So we're going to switch gears again because we don't want our little video visit to be too long. That's our biggest challenge.
Right.
Because we like to talk about our work and helping folks. And so many of you will recognize Mary because she was a featured educational session speaker at our fall transition conference at Big Sandy Community and Technical College this past October 18th, and she was featured among some others in our video that we produced showcasing the transition conferences, and we had 19 schools, well over 600 students who attended, and so it was a partnership opportunity for us, and that materialized from a conversation that we had just a couple weeks prior to that conference. We talked at Horizon Media, which is the media wing of KRCC, and I want to make sure we talk a little bit about that, even though we had your team leader, Charles Boggs, here. So you will see Mary again, maybe not at the conference because we're shifting gears, we're working on a new 2-year scope of work, and so what you may experience, and I'm talking to teachers and students out there, is there may be opportunities for me to bring Mary to your school for an in-school workshop. So a lot of the schools that I work with have experiences through in-school workshops. I just came from one at Hazard Independent. Monday I'll be at Lee County Middle High School, so there'll be opportunities for us to go in and do some workshops on self-advocacy, some of the pre-ETS areas, which is the focus of my work. But given your background and experience, your life skills workshops, self-advocacy workshops are just very powerful. So we look forward to making those happen.
Absolutely.
And what we'll do with this video is we'll send it out and say, hey, here's an opportunity to bring Mary to your school as it fits with your schedule. In fact, just yesterday, one of her team members, Fletcher Long, was with us at the Desi Scott Children's Home in Wolfe County, and it was amazing. In fact, the teachers were texting me later in the day saying that the students were having trouble focusing on their work because they kept talking about the workshop that they attended. So thank you for being willing to partner with us and giving us some of your staff's time, because I know how busy you all are, especially you as the CEO and General Counsel of this major organization. So I applaud you for your willingness to be available as we move forward to do some in-school workshops. And if we do any more transition conferences region-wide, which we're not sure we're going to be able to do that moving forward, given the new funding formula, but you would have a standing invitation, of course, always, because you were amazing, had tons of very positive feedback from you, and you looked great on the on the transition conference video.
I did not watch that on purpose.
So
but
thank you. Oh, you got to watch it. It was great.
Yeah.
So let's just for a moment pause and talk a little
Okay.
bit about Horizon Media, because there are some
Okay.
opportunities there for KVAC and KRCC to partner together as we move forward, because we are the most innovative educational cooperative in the United States, and we are digitizing everything. We are digitizing our professional learning opportunities to make those accessible and available to all of our teachers and administrators in the service region. And that's what we have to do. We need to
right.
do it. So Horizon Media, very progressive,
Yes.
tremendous talent there, and they were here visiting, and we see some opportunities as we move forward, and we'll make those connections.
Good. Well, I'll start by saying they built me a 25-foot dragon to ride in a parade. That is an exceptional group of talented people. But I'll also say this. When I say that, everybody that works at KRCC is. And one of my stints in law school, when you're not allowed to work in law school, I'm digressing. There's a point to this. I digress a lot.
No, we're fine.
You're not allowed to work in law school. They want you to focus on your studies to be successful. I, being a poor person from Eastern Kentucky with a daughter, needed money, so I did not follow those guidelines, and I had actually 3 jobs in law school at one time.
Oh my goodness.
So I would deliver door to door from 4 in the morning until my first class at 8 in the morning, got off classes at 4:30, and worked a shift at Kroger from 4:30 to midnight. And then on weekends, I would work at a facility called Accepticon that was in Lexington, and I would work as a residential tech, which meant that you gave people baths, people with DDID. So I had never dealt with that population. That's the first time I had ever dealt with the DDID population, was in law school, and it was strictly for the money. I'm being very honest. I needed a weekend job. I needed more money. Didn't have a particular interest at that time. Didn't even know what I was doing, honestly. The job I did, but didn't know what I was getting myself into. And started that job, and it was one of, if not the hardest, one of the 2 hardest jobs I've ever had in my life. Dealing with a population that's difficult sometimes to manage. I'm not necessarily the caretaker personality type, but that's what it entailed, to the nitty-gritty. I mean, you're helping people use the bathroom, right? The reason I say all of that is that when every job I've ever had in my life, all these odd jobs, I could name a whole bunch, have led me to this position. Because now as CEO, when I'm looking at salary scales, different positions and things we post for jobs, I'm always, and this is a true statement, thinking of that residential tech who is our least paid person. Now that's a whole other conversation and why it is that way. On our pay scale for the most part, or at least one of the minimum wage workers, and our minimum wage, by the way, is $10.10. I'm very proud of that.
Yeah,
I'm very proud of
that
that.
is great. I'm glad you shared that with our audience.
But when I'm looking at people over here, because not everybody's happy in their job, and sometimes you've got to deal with that too. I always think when I'm hearing things over here about this person over here, because we have, I can't even count the number of employees. We've got, I want to say 100. Jill Blair's going to kill me if I get that number wrong. But we've got a lot of those residential techs that work in our programs. We've got 23 houses for DDID individual, and we have to staff those with ratios of like 2 to 3. So we've got a lot of people employed in that department doing that same job that I did all those years ago in law school. And I did it for 6 months because I needed the money. They do it as a career, and they do it very well at the least paid, at least the minimum wage of our scale. So the reason I say that is Horizon are amazing, but everybody that works in our organization is amazing for the most part. For the most part. So,
Spoken as a true CEO.
yeah, I know the stats, but for the most part. But to the Horizon Bunch, they are our creative arm of the agency. And I tell them all the time, and I know they'll agree with this, that if I really could have my dream job that I focus 1,000% of my time on, that probably would be, I consider myself creative. Now, whether anybody else does, I certainly do. So that can sometimes lead to instructions like, I love Game of Thrones, so I want to ride a dragon in a parade. Could you build me one? And they do. And they don't just build a dragon. They build a 25-foot long dragon that breathes smoke. And when I say I want to turn its head so it can turn from side to side in the parade, it does. And I get to ride it as Khaleesi. Are you kidding me? These are some talented people. And it don't just stop there. I then say, well, let's throw a gala. We've never done that before. but I want us to build an elephant that you can climb up on. Let's build a lion. Let's do this. Let's everything I say let's do, they say, okay, let's figure out how to do it. And so it goes beyond just print and talk media. It is to construction of things that you can never imagine in Eastern Kentucky. And I read every year. I buy my daughter the book, The Ripley's Believe It or Not. That's one of her Christmas gifts since she was 6. And now I've gotten to the point I wrap it up in big old boxes. I mean, it's kind of a game. Like, where's the book at? You know, whatever. Waste a lot of wrapping paper. But I read it before I wrap it, cover to cover, that book reader, right? And I'm always thinking to myself, 20 years from now, when I'm long gone or retired or on a beach or probably still working somewhere, I don't know, is somebody going to read one of those? Why is there a strange oddity of a dragon sitting on a hill in Hazard, Kentucky? I mean, I imagine that little blurb in that Ripley's Believe It or Not. So, but Horizon is a group of people. We do print, we do recording, digital. Right now, they're heavily involved in the PAC docuseries. They probably mentioned that to you.
They did.
Okay.
Could you refresh our audience's memory, please?
I can. For those of you who are familiar with 13 Reasons Why, it's a Netflix program that dealt with teen angst. That's the best way to describe that, I guess. I binge watched it with my sons. Anyway, there was some controversy after that came out surrounding the idea that a lot of very heavy subjects were represented in that 13-part series, but there wasn't a lot of conversations that could be had with responsible people around that. What did it mean? The decisions depicted here. And so that kind of started off that conversation. Ginger Schaus, actually, in our prevention, which is Charles Schaus's spouse, who works at Horizon, we're a family affair, kind of kick-started this idea of having a docu-series that was not in any way responsive to that particular series, but kind of dealt with very heavy teen issues, but did it in a way that corresponded with the curriculum so that this series could be shown in school. And so you would show one part of it, discussing bullying, for example. And then there would be a curriculum that would go along with that. And you would have a discussion in a classroom setting with a moderator and a teacher. And let's talk about what we just saw. What does this mean? What resources are out there for you? So there's so many things that go along with this. It's not just, you can watch it just as a standalone series. I was actually down for some of the filming and watching. We brought in some actual, that's not the right word. We brought in some paid actors, but there were so many volunteers in our region and kind of like me want to be on TV and get their moment of fame, right? So we had tons of volunteers, but some very good actors and actresses. And when I saw, and this is true, I'm not a crier because I've led a hard life and I don't cry a lot, right? But when I saw what they had done for the trailer for this thing, and it was the rough cut, it wasn't even the fancy version yet, I literally was verklempt. Is that the right word? You got? I'm going to say verklempt because I've heard it and I'm going to say it. I was verklempt. I was so choked up that I was afraid to speak because I thought if I do, I'm going to choke out a sob. I was so moved by the trailer of this and seeing the issues that are going to be depicted. So I cannot even imagine, because we're close to the final versions of all the episodes.
Good to know, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to be very moved.
Yeah.
I was so moved by the trailer that I can't even imagine.
Look forward to it.
Yeah.
That is amazing. You are so much fun.
You're
and
sweet.
So we look forward, teachers out in the Quebec service region, to partnering so that we can make Mary and some of her team members available as far as in-school workshops and or conference ed sessions. We never know what we're going to do, so we look forward to creating some great things for our folks that we work with out in the service region. So thank you, Mary, so much for your time today. And with that, we'll put a boat ribbon on it.
Okay.
And
applause.
yeah,
right?
we had fun, and we will holler at you later. Thank you so much.